Sylvia, everyone's suddenly talking about the moon's south pole like it's the most valuable place in space, water ice future bases, even fuel for missions to Mars. Okay, I get why it's important, but here's what I can't wrap my head around. Apollo astronauts went to the moon more than 50 years ago, and they never even tried going near that region. So how did we suddenly become brave enough or advanced enough to aim for one of the most extreme parts of the moon? What actually changed in space technology over the last 5 decades?
Space technology is an extremely dynamic field, Albert, and a lot has changed in the last 50 years. Back in the Apollo era, the goal was simple but historic: prove that humans could reach the moon and come back safely. And they did that brilliantly. But Apollo missions were designed for short visits to relatively safe, flat regions. Today, space agencies aren't just trying to reach the moon. They're trying to operate there, work there, and eventually stay there. And that requires a whole new level of technology. Modern spacecraft can navigate more precisely, land more safely, survive harsher environments, and run complex robotic missions before humans even arrive.
So it's not that we suddenly got braver, it's that our technology finally caught up with our ambitions. Okay, so what's the biggest difference between Apollo landings and modern ones?
Well, Albert, I think the biggest shift comes down to how accurately we can control a landing today compared to the Apollo era. Apollo crews were unbelievably skilled, no doubt about that, but their onboard computers were extremely limited by today's standards. They didn't have the kind of detailed surface maps, real-time sensors, or automated guidance systems we rely on now. Modern missions can use high-resolution mapping, live data during descent, and smart navigation systems. And that helps spacecraft land far more precisely than ever before.
So in the Apollo era, it was like, good luck, pilot.
Oh, not exactly that, Albert. But landings back then depended much more on the astronauts' judgment and manual control. They were incredibly skilled, no question about that, but they didn't have the kind of real-time surface analysis we have today.
Wait, you mean the spacecraft can actually see where it's landing?
Yes. Now, a modern lander can actually scan the ground while it's descending and make decisions on the fly. It can basically say, too many rocks here, slope looks dangerous, let me shift to a safer spot. And that's one of the biggest game changers. This system is called Terrain Relative Navigation, or TRN. During descent, the lander takes live images of the surface and compares them with detailed lunar maps stored on board. That helps it figure out its exact position and adjust its path. Think of it like Google Maps, but instead of finding a coffee shop, it's trying to avoid a crater.
That's insane. Apollo astronauts would have loved to have this terrain relative navigation system.
Oh, absolutely. Terrain relative navigation is one of the key technologies that makes difficult regions, like the moon's south pole, finally reachable. Without this kind of smart navigation, landing there safely would still be extremely risky.
So landing at the south pole of the moon isn't just difficult, it's actually dangerous. You've got deep craters, scattered boulders, steep slopes everywhere. It sounds more like a survival challenge than a landing site. So that's why Apollo missions never even tried going there, right?
Well, that's a big part of it, yes. But the environment itself is even more extreme than most people realize. Near the South Pole, there are regions we call permanently shadowed craters. These places haven't seen sunlight for billions of years. Because of that, temperatures inside them can drop below minus 200 degrees Celsius. That kind of cold can freeze electronics, drain batteries, and make materials brittle. So it's not just about landing safely, it's also about surviving once you're there. To operate in that environment, you need incredibly precise landing systems, better insulation, advanced power management, and technology designed specifically for extreme lunar conditions.
Another thing just hit me. During Apollo, the astronauts were basically doing everything themselves. collecting samples, setting up experiments, driving the rover. If we're now talking about long-term bases and resource use, that sounds like way too much work for just a few people. So what's different today?
Great point. That's a huge shift, Albert. Modern lunar missions are designed around robotics first. Instead of sending humans to do all the heavy lifting, we now send robotic systems, rovers, drilling machines, automated science stations, and eventually even robotic construction tools. These machines can explore dangerous terrain, work in extreme cold, and operate for long periods without life support. That makes them perfect for scouting locations, testing soil, and even preparing sites before humans ever arrive. Because if the goal is to build a long-term presence, habitats, power systems, maybe even resource processing, astronauts alone simply can't do it all.
So we're not just sending astronauts anymore. We're basically sending a whole robotic workforce ahead of them. Machines that explore, drill, analyze soil, maybe even start setting things up before a single human boot touches the ground. That's wild, Sylvia. It's like the moon is getting its first team of remote-controlled workers before the humans even move in.
Exactly. Think of robots as the first wave of workers on the moon. And this isn't just theory. We've already seen it happening. Take India's Pragyan rover from the Chandrayaan-3 mission. After landing near the moon's South Pole region, that little rover rolled out and started analyzing the soil, confirming elements like sulfur and studying the surface composition. That's a robot doing real field science in a harsh lunar environment. China's U2 rovers have also been exploring the moon robotically for years, studying terrain and geology long before any human returns. And upcoming missions from NASA and private companies are planning robotic landers that will carry drills, instruments, and technology demonstrators to test how we might one day extract resources. So before astronauts build habitats or set up equipment, robots will map the terrain, analyze the soil, test the environment, and figure out what works and what doesn't. By the time humans arrive, the place isn't a mystery anymore. It's a surveyed worksite. That combination, human decision-making plus robotic labor, is what finally makes long-term lunar activity realistic, instead of just a dream.
So when NASA says Artemis astronauts are going to land near the South Pole, this isn't just Apollo with upgraded gadgets. From everything you've said, the extreme cold, the darkness, the robots going first, this sounds like a completely different level of mission.
Absolutely right, Albert. Artemis isn't Apollo 2.0. It's a whole new approach built on everything we just talked about. Apollo missions were short and focused on relatively safe flat areas. Artemis, on the other hand, is designed for repeat missions and longer stays, especially in challenging regions like the South Pole. That's why Artemis depends on precision landing systems that can safely reach rugged terrain, surface systems that can operate for longer periods in extreme cold and unusual lighting, cargo deliveries ahead of astronauts, because robots and supplies need to arrive first, and eventually, technology to use local resources, like turning lunar ice into water, oxygen, or even fuel. NASA's Artemis 3 mission, planned for later this decade, aims to land astronauts near the South Pole, something Apollo simply didn't have the tools to attempt.
So Apollo proved we could visit the moon, that humans could leave Earth, land on another world, and make it back home. But Artemis, that sounds like a whole different level. It's not just about flags and footprints anymore. It's about figuring out how to stay longer, work in tough environments, build things, and keep coming back again and again. That's starting to sound less like exploration and more like the beginning of living beyond Earth.
Exactly, Albert. Apollo was about reaching the moon, a bold first step that showed it was possible. Artemis is about what comes next, learning how to live and operate there, step by step, mission by mission. It's about building the skills, the systems, and the experience we'll need if humans are ever going to work on the moon regularly, and eventually travel even farther, to places like Mars. So this isn't just a return to the moon. It's the start of turning the moon into a place where humanity can truly function, not just visit,